Hi, this is On Imagination. This is part of a series called Hello Self, We Need to Talk. This is really sitting down and focusing on the relationship you have with you. It's a topic that we hear a lot about, especially today. It's all over the place, and it is so poorly defined or explained that a lot of people have no idea where to begin because it is an understanding of the levels of the consciousness, which almost no one has any comprehension of. And the reason why is because this is the area of the abstract where no one has dared venture before. Everyone, psychologists, people, everyone is terrified of insanity. We always have been. The concept of losing your mind is a concept that you don't come back from. I did. And one of the things that I did in my studies, and it's really important to emphasize in this case that my studies was my healing journey, was my venturing into the insane and coming back from it. And it was very much now that I've come back for it, let me tell you what I found. To say I have a wealth of information on the subject is an understatement. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, depression, bipolar 1, multiple personality disorder, literally almost every mental illness you can think of, I had. And 5 of them I was told was incurable. This was told to me by a bunch of people who knew nothing about the subconscious mind, nothing about the abstract, nothing about philosophy, physics, mathematics, or ontology. When they heard my story, they were adamant that I must have been on drugs. I must have cut myself. I must have had an eating disorder. I must have. And the person who did my intake and my therapist spent an awful lot amount of time in disbelief that I wasn't a drug addict or an alcoholic. And when we covered my intake and my history, and I explained to them how I coped with what was done to me, it was a massive disbelief. And both of them said to me, "You should be dead." This was not a reflection of me. This was a projection of their limited understanding of what a person is capable of and what the mind is. When they told me, "You should be dead," literally on my intake and then on my very first day of therapy, I wanted to go home and kill myself because they believed I should be dead. That is how ignorant and oblivious they are to their own profession. My therapy worsened from there. The techniques and the tactics used caused more mental damage that kept me in the state of insanity much longer than ever needed. And it took me about 3 years to realize they had no idea what they were doing. That's when I pulled away from therapy and I started to do my own thing completely independent. I started to look into ontology, existentialism, which is one of my massively favorite subjects in all of philosophy and something I've been studying since 1995. So I was very familiar with the metaphysical, with ontology, the abstract, and existentialism. It was a belief in our culture, and it was a belief that really influenced a lot of my choices early on, that healing was separate from existentialism. And when I realized how ignorant and naive psychologists are, I took a massive step back and looked into existentialism again and realized this is not a healing journey. This was existential crisis. It was not an identity crisis. It was an existential crisis. And it led me into this massive world back again that I started to pull apart on a level that's never been done before. We are afraid and we are terrified of insanity. We are so terrified of it that there are unspoken rules that ensure we stay on this side of sanity. And there is a very thin line, they say, between genius and insanity. And there is such terror around the concept because the moment you lose your sanity, you lose credibility. The moment you lose your sanity and credibility, you lose everything. I had already lost everything. I already had lost my insanity or my sanity. I grew up being told I was crazy. I never had my sanity, according to the church, my parents, my brothers, everybody. Everybody had already deemed me insane from the time I was 8 years old on up. So when I finally decided to heal myself, I didn't have my sanity to lose. I had my sanity to gain. What this meant for me was I was able, quite literally, to venture as far as I wanted into the abstract consciously with nothing to lose. So I did. And what I found there was answers, information, and most importantly, a whole lot of ignorance on everybody else who's never dared venture into the insane. I got to the other side of insanity. I found the words there. I had to invent most of them. It was amazing to me how, as soon as I could put together a language, how easy it was for me to articulate what I learned and what I saw. I call the language abstractic, the language of the abstract. There's no other word for it. And the more I built the language for the abstract, for what I was looking at, I found my insanity melt away. That immediately gave me a position where I started to question what is insanity, but the inability to articulate and communicate. Our entire culture, households, relationships, societies, businesses, everything lives, borns, breathes, rises, falls on communication. And if we don't have strong communication, we can't articulate ourselves. I wrote a book in 2015 called Broken. And one of the things that I get from a lot of people is how clear and articulate it is. The thing is, I wrote it at the height of my insanity. I am not just somebody who's ventured into the abstract, but I was a published author. I am an award-nominated author, which means my command for language is superior to the average person, which means I can communicate. I'm a linguist. Communication is my forte. So despite all of my insanity, I could still articulate. What I lacked most of my life was the ability to explain, define, and identify what it was I was looking at, what it was I was experiencing. So I turned to logic, math, and physics to fill in the holes, to explain, because I had no credibility. I had nothing to lose. When I was done, I discovered a formula, a literal healing formula that allowed me to advance at my own time with full consciousness into each level of consciousness. And I discovered that there were levels of consciousness, an infinite number of levels of consciousness. I learned how to pass between each level, how to advance. And I learned that with every level of consciousness, I not only gained a new perspective, a new emotion, a new ethic, I also gained new insight of myself, and my self-awareness increased exponentially. It was extraordinary. I documented the entire journey over and over again. Once I put together the language for the abstractic, I was able to start articulating my journey to other people. And what resulted was a respect and a command from others where they started to revere me with my knowledge. The biggest message I can give to anyone who's starting the journey into the abstract is everything you think you know, everything you've been told is wrong. Everything we've been told is wrong. There's a lot of ignorant, dark age guesses that a lot of people have made for thousands of years, and they're all very much reeking of their ignorance. And once you step into the abstract and you get past the doorway, which is literally 4 levels of consciousness deep, you start to realize how little we've known about this for so long, how much bias and prejudice has been built up, how much fear has been built up around this, so that no one, not even the professionals, have even dared approach it. But the fear that's put them in a position where they haven't even dared approach it is what kept them ignorant of it. We are quick to lock up geniuses. We are way too hasty and quick to label people with disorders. Even the concept of mental illness makes me sick. It is a behavioral defense. It is not at all an illness. And the real crux of all of this, if you were to really sit down and pull apart what it is you are really battling, it is just your self-doubt. Just your self-doubt. And when I realized how much all of it was just self-doubt, how when you have self-doubt, you start turning against yourself. You start dividing yourself, literally disintegrating from the inside out. That's what was done to me. Once I realized this, I stopped disintegrating and I started integrating. When I integrated, my multiple personality vanished instantly, overnight, within a few minutes. My borderline personality was gone. When I started integrating, I stopped disintegrating. My mental illness, all of it vanished. Within 8 months, I was of complete, solid, and sound mind. I had absolutely no traces of any trauma or mental illness 6 weeks after I figured this out and stopped the disintegration. One of the things that really stood out to me that I've never articulated until now, the thing that really sits prominent most in the forefront, is my multiple personality disorder. So little is known about the disorder. I'm not going to call it a disorder. Multiple personality is very much a disintegration of the consciousness. It is a divide where the parts of the self literally turn on the self, and you are in a civil war. I was expecting the personalities and the alters to be individuals, outsiders, completely separate from me. They're not. They're me. And I was expecting them to completely go away as if they were viruses that had invaded my consciousness. Not at all. They are my consciousness. They were just in pieces, shattered pieces, disintegrated. When I talked to other people, one of the things I realized was everybody has multiple personalities. Everybody has pieces of the consciousness. After I integrated, one of the things I realized very quickly was that the parts of the subconscious mind are the alters. They're the same thing, which means the part of you that has identity, that loves, that has joy, could, if you disintegrated far enough, become an alter. And the part of you that has fear and self-preservation could become an alter. And the part of you that has courage and is a warrior and has strength could become an alter. And the part of you that is logical, cold, and calculated could become an alter. There are so many pieces of the self. And when somebody disintegrates so much that they divide and split into pieces of themselves, it's not an invasion, it's a civil war. And it's all about learning how to work together as a team. So when we walk into healing, there's what's believed, what people think it is. There's a lot of bullshit, bottom line. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And it's absolutely so far off from the truth because no one has dared venture into the depths of insanity before. And those who are there cannot articulate themselves, which is why they're insane. Insanity doesn't exist. It doesn't. When people looked at the words I've written at the peak of my mental illnesses, they're dumbfounded that somebody that mentally ill could articulate themselves that well. It's because insanity doesn't exist. What exists is ignorance, a lack of communication skills, an inability to understand what is going on with you because you weren't taught. I put together triadic healing, which is literally a walkthrough of my entire journey, where I was when I started, all the steps I took in the right order of operations, the directions and the recipe, the entire walkthrough to get you from stepping stone to stepping stone, milestone to milestone, where you are, point of origin, to your destination. It takes you down into the levels of the consciousness. You can go as far as you want. And I give you the heading. I give you the navigational system. I call this the AIDNS. In order for you to find your way back, it's literally an entire navigational system of the self, so you can venture as deep into it as you want and come back again. And I spent much of my time over the last 4 years dissecting every nook and cranny, every corner of the abstract and the subconscious mind, defining it, shaping it, mapping it from the perspective of all of my alters, and then integrating my alters and mastering every nook and cranny and shadow of the subconscious mind and the abstract. The walkthrough that I've built is triadic healing in 3 parts. When I say order of operations, I mean it. It's imperative that things are learned in the right order. When we talk about the self, there's a lot of apprehension people have. There's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And I always liken those first few conversations with yourself like you've been told you have to go have tea with your aunt who you don't know. So you're sitting there very uncomfortably at a table with this stranger while you sip tea and you have no idea what to say. And I was there many times until I finally learned how to talk to myself effectively. That is something we talk about here. That's something we delve into very deeply. It is not at all a journey that you think it's going to be. I often think about if I were to go back and say something to myself when I started, what would I need to hear? What do people need to hear at the very beginning before they even start? And here's the thing. You are seeking a healing journey for 2 reasons. Either you really are in a lot of pain and you just want the pain to stop. That was my reason. You just want the pain to stop. The second reason why people do this is because they have a calling. They have this pull of finding themselves. I'm going to tell you, it's the same thing. The reason why you're in pain is because you have been separated from yourself and it hurts that much. If you have a calling and you're being drawn toward it, it does hurt significantly until you find yourself. You are talking about a disintegration of the self. It's going to hurt. The pain relief came 10 levels in. The pain relief came again at 12 levels in. The ultimate pain relief came 26 levels in. I'm finally at a point where there is no pain. But it took me 26 levels of subconsciousness to dive this deep into it. Insanity ended at the 10th level in. If you are watching this video, there is a good chance you are probably at the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th level, maybe the 6th level. But because you're in so much pain, you probably had the 6th level taken away from you. We cover that as well. The other thing that I would really go back and say to myself is this, and this is, of all the things to say, this is really the big one that I just really wish I could impart with every person in the world. Everything you think is wrong. Everything you think you know is wrong. There is absolutely nothing that we got right, which is why you're in so much pain. And I didn't start healing until I learned to abandon and let go of 100% of everything they told me. Their concept of reality is wrong. Their concept of truth is wrong. Their concept of the mind, of insanity, Freud, all wrong. All of it. I tried integrating their work into mine. It made it worse. I tried following 100% of their work. It made it worse. I tried a hybrid. It made it worse. It wasn't until I finally abandoned 100% of everything they told me and I found my own way that it worked. But I had to go literally the path of philosophy, ontology, logic, math, and physics to do it. Completely and entirely away from them, because they are not using philosophy, logic, math, ontology, or physics. They're not using any of the sciences, which is why the sciences do not acknowledge psychology as a credible science, because they don't use science. And that is why they are wrong. So when I ventured in and did my walkabout, I went through several years where I held on to their thoughts. I tried to integrate it, but they were so far off the mark. It hindered me, it harmed me, and it significantly slowed my progress. I had to discard everything they said and believed and did, all of it. I found a rare handful of people who had an idea, and that's in my reading material. I provide those books to you, and I'm going to very graphically point out that those people who I cherry-picked, who did help, were philosophers. They were the only psychologists who actually studied philosophy. The rest of them don't, and it shows. After I healed and I had my program, I spoke to several psychologists. They loved my work, and they tried to integrate it into theirs. It's incompatible. It's 100% incompatible with modern psychology. It's just, it doesn't work because they are so far off the mark. It's not a healing journey you're on. It's a rescue mission. You are going into the subconscious mind to take back your identity, find your energy, and your subconscious mind is going to do everything in its power to stop you. Your subconscious mind is the enemy. Your subconscious mind is equivalent to a narcissist with highly logical skills who's literally invaded your mind and knows every tactic to distract you, deter you. But it's doing it out of self-preservation. And you have to literally outsmart, outmaneuver, outthink your own subconscious mind, because your mission and your goal is actually a rescue mission to take back your identity and to take back your energy. And your subconscious mind is going to be hell-bent on stopping you. The course covers how to handle that, how to outthink and outmaneuver your own subconscious mind. But I need to make this clear to you. It's not a healing. Get that out of your head. It's not a healing. It is a rescue mission. It is you versus your subconscious mind. And what you are really doing is rescuing your identity from your subconscious mind. You are actually going beyond your identity and looking for your energy. And all of those things are so buried deep into you, and your subconscious mind is going to do everything to stop you. The subconscious mind stops working against you at the 10th level of the subconscious mind. Once you get to the 10th level, the subconscious mind starts to work with you as a team. You make a lot of progress after that point. But getting to that point, endure it, persevere. It's a battle. There are 4 rounds of this. The first 2 rounds are the hardest. The third round is a cakewalk. The third round is a cakewalk. I am in the third round, and it's a cakewalk. The first 2 rounds are fucking hell. There are 2 completely different types of wars you're going to have to fight. The first round is literally you defining the self and you discovering who you are. It is you finding your identity. The second round is you finding your energy. It's a completely different battle. And it's a completely different kind of work. It's around the 10th level of the subconscious mind that you realize this isn't healing. It's a rescue mission. It's around the 10th level of the subconscious mind that you realize how absolutely clueless we all have been about this. Thank you so much. And I will be seeing you soon. May the kindest of words always find you.